From the News Channel 5 network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. It's been 2 weeks since the final report of Special Counsel Robert Mueller investigating the Russian interference in the 2016 election was filed with U.S. Attorney General Bob Barr. But we still don't know much about the 400-page report, except for a 4-page memo that General Barr sent out. That memo says that the Mueller report found no collusion between the Russians and President Donald Trump and his campaign. The report did not reach a conclusion about whether there was any obstruction of justice involved. But no later than next week, we'll get a further but redacted report about the Mueller report coming out. It'll be released. Not surprisingly, all of this is creating still more controversy and questions about this matter, which has been under investigation for almost 2 years. On Inside Politics today, we'll get their insights, thoughts, and maybe their best guesses about where we're headed, what we'll ultimately learn from the Mueller probe. Our guests are Republican consultant and commentator Steve Gill and Democratic strategist and attorney Larry Woods. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Just like Alice in Wonderland, politics keeps getting curiouser and curiouser, right, Larry?
It does. You know, the Mueller report, I really don't understand the Trump-William Barr strategy here. I've always understood in crisis management, and when you're getting bad headlines, it's crisis, whether it works out or not. You're better off to get it out there and get it over with. And they're going to stretch it out for months.
There's been a 2-year investigation, and surely you were surprised and I suspect disappointed the Mueller report didn't find any Russian collusion.
Well, I don't know that yet because I haven't read the details. It's the details that count. I hear Barr saying they didn't find that, and I assume he wouldn't, get that part wrong. But I want the details. I know the general scope of the report. 7 people have been found guilty, 27 indicted, 3 Russian companies indicted. I want the details of what they investigated and learned that didn't add up to a legal criminal charge.
But Steve, the president himself was not involved in any of that. So is this about what you thought? There would be no collusion to come out of this report?
It's what we've been hearing for 2 years. It's what testimony in Senate and House hearings have said. It's what we've heard after reports and investigations were done in the Senate and the House. There was no Russian collusion that involved the Trump campaign. The Russians may have wanted to interfere. They may have tangentially done some things, but nobody who's been prosecuted or indicted or charged that has anything to do with the Trump campaign was even accused of having any relationships with the Russians. It was all about process crimes. And I think the real investigations now will turn to how did this whole process start? Who in the FBI, who in the intelligence community, who started this thing using bogus information to get FISA warrants?
Yeah, Larry, perhaps the best defense is a good offense. The Attorney General brought up this whole thing of investigating the investigators. How did this probe get started? We went 2 years, at least he would say, and nothing came out of this. He did say that spying on another presidential campaign was a big deal.
Yeah, but
when the top law enforcement officer says something's a big deal, shouldn't people get nervous that we're involved in this?
Yes, but best defense is good offense. Look where that got Attorney Avenatti, who's just gotten indicted for 50 different crimes. Here, the start, the spying by the FBI allegation and accusation, that's 2014. That's 8 months before anybody thinks Trump's going to run for anything. That's when the warrant was issued by the Foreign Intelligence Court in Washington, D.C., focused on Carter Page. Now, did Mr. Page commit crimes, espionage-type crimes, not processed? I have no idea, of course. I haven't seen the investigative material. I assume they would have already indicted him by now if he had, so I assume he did not. But there's the start of the whole thing. It wasn't Trump, it was this guy Carter Page.
Well, let's also talk about the fact that normally Congress sees sensitive materials. They see intelligence stuff all the time. So why can't they get the whole unredacted report, Steve? Shouldn't they be able to? Can't they demand it under law by subpoena?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, keep in mind that this whole spy versus surveillance business, at the very root of it, we know it happened. There's no question about it that foreign intelligence services of the U.S. and the FBI did engage in spying on the Trump campaign and Trump officials. We know that because they sought that FISA warrant using Hillary Clinton and Democrat-paid bogus information to get authority to spy and surveil on the Trump campaign. So there's no question that spying and surveillance happened. As Bill Barr has said, the question is whether or not it was legal or legitimate or not.
What about Congress seeing the full report? Why can't they see the full report? They see lots of secret stuff all the time. And
I think part of it is, again, some of this is grand jury information that is protected under the grand jury, that you can't just disclose this sort of thing. And the other problem is Congress leaks like a sieve. And when you've got information that, again, in these
and the Justice Department
investigations, well, that's the problem. The Justice Department and the FBI have been leaking to try and attack the Trump administration, and you're going to see the Schiffs and the Swalwells and the other Democrats doing the same thing to selectively pick pieces out that doesn't come in context of what's really in the report. The biggest problem with this report is they have to investigate. If the FBI gets something, and Larry knows this, if somebody calls and says, I know this about Pat Nolan, they investigate it. They may determine it's totally bogus. Should that bogus information should that bogus information then be public because somebody wanted to smear you by using the intelligence agencies and the FBI? That is improper, and it shouldn't be done. And handing that to the Congress and the Democrats in Congress to smear people with that information is completely wrong.
Now, Larry, Robert Mueller continues to be very quiet. The Attorney General said that he offered Mueller the opportunity to look at his 4-page memo to review it. He didn't take it. He said nothing since his. Does it mean something to you? Is it a sign of caution that Mueller has filed his report and continues to be a sphinx?
Mueller's smart. He's going to let the report speak for itself. He's not interested in being a media star or a Hollywood personality. He doesn't want to be on the 6 o'clock news or the social media.
But given the redactions and the continuing questions will probably only grow once whatever is released is released, isn't he likely to be subpoenaed and have to come testify before Congress about it?
Clearly, if the House Democrats don't get the unredacted Mueller report, they're simply going to issue a subpoena from Mueller and all his top assistants and interrogate him under oath. Tell me the name of every witness you talked to. Tell me everything that witness said. It's just going to be long and stretched out.
Steve, this sounds like access to this particular report, at least the full report, is probably headed to the courts. Is that ultimately advantage Donald Trump because he has put 2 new members on the Supreme Court who might, because of their conservative bent, be on his side?
I think the sort of things that are going to be redacted in this report are going to be ongoing investigations. They don't have to get to the Supreme Court to have courts say, no, you can't reveal information about ongoing investigations that might hurt those investigations. Again, if you've got grand jury testimony, you already have restrictions about producing that. You've got intelligence information. There are plenty of court cases already before you even get close to the Supreme Court that will say these redactions are okay, and that's why it's taken a few weeks to go line by line of what can be in and what must be out.
Republican strategist Steve Gill is our guest, along with Democratic strategist Larry Woods. We're talking about the Mueller report, what's been released about it so far, what's likely to be released very soon, and what it all means. Back to continue our conversation about that and other Washington politics after this break.